All right, today I'm joined by somebody who has one of my favorite voices, both influentially and literally. He's a voice actor, radio host, DJ, a whole bunch of things. You can catch him online at Renzo on Twitter and Instagram. Check out also his website. It's linked to his bio on his Instagram and Twitter. So anything for work, go check out his website. Renzo, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, Trey. So happy to be here. I've seen the caliber of talent that you've had on the show, and I'm like, he thinks of me that highly? That's great.
I'm glad. Thank you so much for that. I'm just like, you know what? Whenever someone comes on and says that about the show, I'm just like, thank you to my friends who are like extremely talented. And
I mean, you know what they say? It's like you are who you hang around. So if you're looking around you and seeing talented people, there's a reason for that, Trey.
That it's a good spot. Actually, we had a recording last year that something happened with the files, and honestly, by the time like we thought about like retrieving the files again, you said something about a bill that was passed, and it's been like 3 months since it happened, and I remember Don and I were just like, yeah, that's not gonna work out.
No, but I'm glad. I mean, you know, there were a lot of things that I'm pretty sure a lot of people were working on like early pandemic, but now a year later, it's like, you know, it seems like a lifetime ago, but at the same time, it still feels like that same stretch of like 2 or 3 weeks when they announced quarantine, where everyone was like, 1 month lang yan tops, and then now it's like here, it's crazy, man.
I remember I told my friends, I was just like, all right, guys, like lockdown's tomorrow. I'll see you in 2 weeks. We went to the grocery that day because I was like, I need to get some, you know, canned food just in case. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah. Dude, what kept you sane during the pandemic? Because, you know, you're someone who I would see whenever I'd go to gigs, you know, whenever I'd go to this and there, I'd always run into you. It's always such a blast. But then, you know, personally, I'm okay staying at home and just doing these things. But for you, you know, you're such a go-getter. You go to these places and you make stuff happen. But how did you kind of survive that 1 year of not being able to do much?
It was hard. It was really hard, honestly. Like, the first 1 month for me was just, I couldn't handle it. I couldn't take it, honestly.
Right.
Like, I mean, I managed somehow, but that 1 month, I remember I actually, like, I was recording to myself. Just, I wish I had the files. I don't anymore. But I had a recording of myself just, like, talking about how I felt during the time. And I was just like, yeah, this is so hard for me. My entire life just 360'd. Because like what you said, I love being outside. I like going out. I didn't know how to stay home for a whole day. Like, that's just my nature.
So I'm imagining Trey just standing outside his house, like literally just standing there, just making sure you're getting some outside time. It's like, is that what you mean? Or like, were you really just like at home wondering what to do?
No, I was just at home. I was afraid to walk outside at that point.
True.
Because like at that point, everyone's just like, oh, there's like this extremely deadly virus and everything. Like, we don't know much about it. It could be in the air for like days, and I was just like, no, like I'm not. Hell no, I'm not. Hell no, I'm going out. I'm not doing that.
Which is the same reaction to that. I mean, there are a lot of people who didn't have that reaction, so I'm pleased you reacted normally and medically appropriate.
I agree. It was that's just how it was. How about for you? What did you do? Like, did you handle it okay? Like, considering your personality.
I mean, you know, I'm someone who, you know, I describe myself as someone who is charismatic, but, you know, fairly introverted, not in a sense that, you know, I don't like talking to people. Obviously, you know, I've met so many great people in my job and getting to see great talent and perform and stuff like that. But then, you know, it really is just something I'm used to, staying at home. But of course, you know, staying at home with no choice is
that's
a completely different story. Yeah, it's so different. But I think, you know, being a working adult and just hearing global pandemic, and you know, I help support like my dad and my sister, and you know, we're a very share income household in that sense. So I think like a something inside me just snapped and was like, okay, Renzo, you got to get it together. You got to like go in a pure look for work mode. And so immediately I just, you know, laid down a plan to like sign up for this website and that website and like, you know, put yourself out there in terms of like looking for freelance work. And so that kept me distracted. Plus Discord is such like a lifesaver for so many people. Like, you get to hang out with your friends, watch movies, and just even exist in your own space and time, even if you're not talking to each other, you're just doing your own thing. So thank you, friends. Thank you, Discord. And thank you, I guess, fear of going broke.
You know what? Like, it's crazy how we all had our own way of like reacting to that. And I agree. Discord was like so much fun. When everyone got on
Yeah.
Discord, we're just like, there's this thing. It's not Facebook, and it's great.
Yeah, it's like for once there's a new social media app that actually lets you socialize.
Yeah,
and
like you get to actually
doesn't want to
connect.
sell your data. Exactly.
Yeah, dude. So I find it really interesting because I've seen you around like for years and years, right? I remember, I think the first time I actually noticed you, you were hosting at Sagiho for a Swave Sound show.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think it was Elise told me, like, he asked if he could interview, if he could host. Like, he asked Sam if he could host. And I was like, why? This guy's like a DJ guy. Why is he asking? Like, people should be asking him. And then Elise was like, like, it's just him and like his hustle. And I was like, all right. Tell me about that. Tell me about like that mindset of you actually going to someone and asking, can I host?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it comes from, well, man, this seems like such an ironic statement, but I think you got to approach everything with humility, especially if you're working in this field. You're in media, you're someone that a lot of people can listen to on air, and but on the first mindset that people associate with that is like, uy, artista siya, or like, sikat siya, and that's like of course a welcome joke, and I've had my laughs with friends and stuff. So I feel that if the job comes with that territory and with that air, you have to do your best to like combat it. Like it's your duty to make sure to let people know that you're not like that, because I'm not like that. I mean, I got into the work of radio and media and all that stuff because, I enjoy it, number one, and number two, it's kind of like the path that my sister and my dad helped, lay out for me working in that industry previously.
Yeah.
So the way I approach everyone socially, I mean, I don't even see it as work. I just approach it as, I know these people through work or through my short time in Mint, but I do acknowledge that these are people who are really talented. They're really talented. They work really hard, and they put in as much work, if not way more. No, definitely way more work than I do when it comes to their projects. So just because, sure, I go on the air 3 hours a day every weekday, and a lot of people can hear my voice, I want to make sure that doesn't put me in any position to, assume that people just have to approach me with work. I always have to kind of treat people with that attitude, where I'm just like, okay, dude, you know what you're doing, and I want to make sure that that I know that we're coming from like an equal footing. So, I don't want to treat it as like some, I'm a DJ, obviously you asked me to host. I'll be like, yo, you guys sound really sick. I'm a big fan. You have this show coming up. Can we do something together? That's kind of like my mindset going towards it.
I think that was a good thing that you did, because that's when I first got to know you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
when you look back, like at the moment, it's like, it's weird. It's like 100 people in a small bar. You know what I mean? Like, all that stuff. But then looking back, it's those opportunities that you kind of like go after that you get, and you never know where it leads you in the future. So I have a lot of props to you for that.
Thanks, man. But it was cool because that Sagiho gig, I remember every single time I host for Swave Sound, it's the same conversation every time. It's either I hit up Sam, or Sam hits me up, Sam Marquez, for those of you tuned in who are not familiar. But he usually is just like, hey man, can you host this for One Click Straight or for Swave Sound? It's going to be super fun, it's going to be a big deal and to us, and we want you to kind of host for it. And I'm always like so down and so game, and Sam is always so worried that he's not compensating me well enough, because of course in freelancer culture we all know that the whole for exposure is such a big problem. But I think one thing that a lot of people don't take into account is that it just depends on, like, it's a case-to-case basis. Like, for example, if I don't know you, or if like random client ka lang, like, syempre, I'm not gonna do it just for whatever. But if like you're a friend of mine, or if you're someone that like I admire artistically, then I'll be willing to super help you out, because I know that these people who put up gigs, they're not making hella bank off of it themselves. They're performing for the love of performance. Yeah. So when you have that knowledge, and when these people to be, but like, it's good enough for me that if Sam had the choice, he would like pay me my rates and way above. And so like just that alone, I'm willing to work the whole night just for like free beer. Like that's it. Like, just give me free beer and I'm good.
Yeah. That's a great mindset to have, because honestly, like, that's the truth. Right? We're like, that's just on, like, that's the honest truth. Like, I have a bunch of friends that if they ask me to do something for them, if we're that close, you know, I'll do it for them. You know, if I could in a way also showcase my talent to a bunch of people, why not? Right? If it's not that hassle, if it doesn't take too much of my time, like, let's do it. So there's kind of like that balance. Where do you find that like line of these like people have to pay me?
Right. No, I was actually gonna get to that. It's a good point to bring up, because I think I'm more inclined to do these gigs for lower than my rate, or just for a few beers, if I know that the person asking me is, of course, number one, a friend, and number two, an artist themselves, because they know what it's like. Like, you know, it's not some random 9-to-5 person working in corporate, working in marketing, trying to like, you know, hit their budget. It's an artist who is trying to put together something special with the limited funds that they do have. And I know that the fact that they don't have funds isn't their fault. You know, like if you're working like for a big company and you're tasked to hire like a host or a voiceover actor, like, you know, it's your job to make sure that these people are paid well. But then if you're an artist, if you're a musician, or if you're a manager and you need, you know, I know you're not working with much. I know you're literally like, you're like Tom Holland Spider-Man, just like getting pulled in half, just trying to keep everything together. So if I can, you know, do my part and help you out and get some free beer, listen to like great music and meet people the way that, you know, you and I have, then why not? I mean, it doesn't even feel like work at that point.
That's crazy to me to think about a time where you actually did things for a beer.
yeah, dude. Yeah.
Like, I don't know like your personal rates, but I know it's like in the thousands and whatever, right? So just imagine like there was a moment in time where a 60 peso beer was like, yep, got it, good for me.
And these gigs are so fun because like you go to a Sagiho gig, and again you mentioned that it's like 100 people in like one room, and sure, this like is kind of it's cringe inducing to hear now during COVID times, but you know, everyone's like sweating their butts off and, you know, yelling out lyrics and screaming and taking photos, and it's that energy, you know, it's that energy that is just so invigorating. And you could be running on 2 hours of sleep, which I know you're familiar with, just on gig day, just making all these preparations, and you could be just like lacking sleep, but then that energy will just like bring you all the way back up to the top. And you know, to be able to be given the opportunity to kind of, you know, control that energy and to be someone that people can, you know, watch and kind of be the person to transition from one act to the next, like that's so much fun, because at that point it's the crowd is doing so much of the work for you, and really you just go up there, you know, talk honestly, and you mention the sponsors and you mention the bands, and people go crazy when you mention the bands. And you know, I would say I would host 100 Sagiho gigs over, like, you know, over these big fancy corporate galas and all that stuff.
Like, here's
because,
your script.
Exactly. Yeah. But here in Sagiho, it's like, you know, sure, they give you a script for like the sponsors to read out and some giveaways. But then at the end of the day, you could literally be rating the appetizers from best to worst while the band sets up, which is something I literally did once. You know, so,
that's so fun.
And people are like having fun, they're laughing, and you know, it's a good time. So I think, you know, it's just, it comes with the energy. But I love that. I love that whole culture.
I miss it. I miss it so much. Yeah. Do you remember the first gig that you hosted?
Wow. First gig that I hosted. I think it was something for Warner or something, like for Sony. Because, you know, working in radio, you meet people from the music labels, and typically they kind of get you to host certain artist launches for local artists. I forget what my first ever one was, but I'm pretty sure I did horribly, because I get really bad nerves, you know, before hosting.
Yeah. What are the nerves like for you? How do you combat that?
There's that free beer. There you go.
So when, like, you know,
I look at these really talented hosts that have come before me and other,
Mm.
my peers in radio who are hosts as well. And, I just try to take after them. I try to get from their energy. And, I remember some of their horror stories, having to host for, difficult events and having to
Mm.
pull, 10-minute stretches out of thin air. And, you know, I just think this is what we're asked to do. And if I can make a living just talking, then I'm pretty sure it's not that big of a deal. And plus, there's this thing that my sister always told me, Inca, she would always tell me that, look, you're there for a reason.
Mm.
You're hired for a reason. They picked you for a reason.
Yeah.
So show them that reason. And it really is just about kind of stepping up to the plate and making sure you do your job. And at the end of the day, you're a freelancer, you're a performer. I chose this path, and whatever path you chose, if it's time for you to work, you put the work in.
That's.
Yeah.
I don't know what I can add to that.
I still get nervous though.
No,
like it gets,
for sure.
I still get nervous. Yeah,
for sure. Even for me, like anytime I have any kind of recording, 30 minutes before, I'm just like, it's 30 minutes away. What?
Yeah. Dude, it's so bad. Like during Scout Music Fest. So Scout had host their Scout Music Fest a couple years back with Jam at Fruit Preserve, who's just like so amazing. I'm pretty sure you've met her through Magic, but
yeah,
that particular event was extra scary to me because typically when I host for gigs and for, I feel like these are my peers. These are people kind of like on my level, and I don't feel intimidated by the crowd, which I don't think is like a bad thing to say, because obviously, you feel at home and there's like a sense of comfort there. But with Scout Music Fest, you have like local celebrities in the crowd. You have
that's
like
true.
gorgeous people. You have Eli Aguinaldo in the crowd, and I hadn't met him at that point. So
okay, no.
I didn't know how he was like.
LA, if you don't know LA and you just see him, you're just like, how is he a person?
Yeah.
How are we the same species?
And then, but of course, if you meet him, he's just like an absolute dork, and he's just like the funniest, sweetest guy. Yeah. But, seeing him from afar, you're like, this is like, dude, like I'm about to go up there and host in front of all these people who have like, who are way cooler than me. I can't do this. I was just freaking out. But, that's kind of like where it gets really bad. But again, at the end of the day, it really just boils down to realizing and remembering that you're there for a reason, and that, you're up there as a host, you have the mic, you have that power. So just own it.
I remember those Scout events as well, because I've been to, I think I went to like 3, if I'm not mistaken. And every time I'm there, I'm just like, number one, how are there so many people in one small space? And number 2 would be like, how are there so many good looking people here in this small space?
Yeah, it's like, I feel like they have like a file folder of just like attractive people that they have ready to invite to their events.
They're just like, hey, he's attractive. All right, send him the invite. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's crazy how, looking back and all of that, and you have all those experiences, it's just so fun to think back on. Mm-hmm. And also, I want to ask you about when you started out doing your voiceover work, because you said that your dad, if I'm not mistaken, your dad and your sister,
my parents and my sister,
came before you, all that stuff. When did you know that you wanted to do radio and voiceover?
Right. Well, voiceover work, has been something that I've been doing since I was a kid. Mainly because both my parents, my dad at one point owned his own production house. He started it himself, and
cool. All right.
It to him becoming a commercial producer for radio and TV, and but mostly focusing on audio. But growing up around that environment, and visiting your parents at work, where my mom worked as well, you sometimes get called in, for example, like they need a kid to laugh in this commercial, and they don't, they forgot to, contact someone. They just bring you into the booth, and, you just laugh there. And so, that kind of is where it started. And just being exposed to my parents doing such cool stuff. I mean, they were not only voice actors, but they were also radio DJs themselves. So, I'm basically kind of just following in their footsteps. But growing up, I always thought that what they did was so cool, but also it was so normal to me that whenever I would try to replicate, radio ad libs, and I'd play DJ and stuff like that at home, it would just come naturally to me. How the manner of speaking, the energy levels, and what DJs usually say, because that's what I would be exposed to at such a young age.
Right.
But it really wasn't until probably like maybe later high school that I decided that this is kind of what I wanted to pursue because, well, number one, it's super fun. Obviously, I mean, I'm pretty sure a
Mm.
lot of people would love to kind of pursue work in radio and voiceover work.
Mm.
But number two, it was also kind of because I had difficulties with school financially. My family went through financial troubles, and
Okay.
my dad ended up having to let go of the production house, and so I just thought to myself, okay, if there's a possibility that you won't get to go to college, the same time that everyone else will, and you won't have the
Yeah.
same trajectory that everybody else has, you have to think of like what you can do now that can make
Yeah.
money now to help out and to, build something for yourself. And I thought, okay, at this point I'd had experience in the studio
Mm.
and I'd been exposed to radio. So why not let that be kind of my focus? So
Right.
I guess I didn't really think about it much until I was actually done with high school and everything. But at that point, I knew that I wanted to try out for radio and to pursue more voiceover work. So it was pretty easy just growing up around that.
Did you apply for the? Because I assume that you started out in a junior program.
No, because at that point, when I applied for Play FM at that time, they were still really new, 2013.
Oh.
They had just reformatted into being Play FM from RT. So they were 99.5 RT before, and then
Oh.
they had just turned into Play.
Okay.
Yeah. And so there were no programs yet. They were really just strictly looking for people to hire, and
Yeah.
which was perfect because if there was a student jock program, I wouldn't have been able to join because I wasn't a student. But
Oh yeah,
then,
that's right, huh?
yeah, so it worked out perfectly because my sister knew who my sister was an employee at that point,
Right.
was a DJ, and she knew that I was looking for work. She knew that obviously I had a voice for it, but
Yeah.
I was still super raw in terms of experience. So she just told me to come in one day and try out, and it worked out. Funny story though is the day of my audition, right? The day
Alright,
of
yeah.
my audition for Play FM.
What's that like? Tell me, like,
Yeah.
go through the whole day with me.
Okay, so the only thing I remember from that day auditioning is that same day I literally like had my heart broken. Like I experienced like such a bad heartbreak that day or like the day before that I was
Oh,
telling my sister
man.
I don't want to do it. I was telling her
Yeah.
like I don't want to do it. I don't want to do the audition. I'm not feeling it. But she
Yeah.
told me like, no, I set this up for you. I'm vouching for you. Gotta do it. And plus, like, this is so much is riding on this. So now I'm wondering like, what would have changed if I had just like, it's crazy how things can just lead up to one decision. And
Yeah.
I think it's one thing to keep in mind for a lot of people out there. There may be something that you say no to because of an unexpected outside force, but don't let these situations kind of derail your plans because you never know what the alternative could be 5 years down the line.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
What did you like forget about the heartbreak while you were in the audition?
No, it was the only thing I thought of. But it was because it was the one thing that was like driving me to do well. I mean, when
Okay.
you experience heartbreak, when you're experiencing bitterness, the one thing that a lot of people do is that they kind of dedicate themselves to bettering themselves, whether
Yeah,
it be
yeah.
working out so you look hotter or being more successful. It's just we all want to thrive to not to be petty, but just to well, I guess maybe it is a little bit to be petty, but just to it also works out for us. It also works out for us in that
Yeah.
sense. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that's really the only thing I remember from that day. And I sat down there, and then they told me, okay, just talk about anything. 5 minutes, talk about anything. And I'm just like, what does
What
that
did you
mean?
talk about? Do you remember?
I remember I pretended like I was talking out of a Day to Remember song, and the one thing that I usually go to is that I always talk about like the date, the time, the weather, because that's kind of like what I grew up
Yeah,
with
yeah,
vintage
yeah,
radio,
yeah.
vintage radio announcement style. So I think it went something like 99.5 Play FM. That was music from A Day to Remember. It is now 9:37 in the morning. Good morning, Metro Manila. It is another Thursday morning with me, Renzo, all the way till 12 noon. Of course, I didn't sound as good as that, but it was just a lot of radio,
Yeah.
generic radio blabber that they listened back to and were like, okay, we could train this guy, because, they
Yeah.
weren't going to hire me right away. They had to train
Yeah.
first and everything. So I'm glad that, my sister still pushed me to that. And I'm glad that, that all happened, because radio was just like a life-changing experience.
What technical aspect of your voice did you have to change?
I had to stop yelling so much. Like, one thing that people told me all the time was that, you have great energy, you have a great voice, but you're literally screaming at the mic. Like, I don't, and I listened back to myself and I'm like, yeah, I'm getting exhausted listening to myself.
Right.
And I think one of the biggest lessons that, I was taught in radio is that, you don't have to sound happy, cheery, energetic all the time, because typically that's usually what people associate with radio DJs, and there are some DJs that do sound like that and that they do rock it, but it's not for everybody. And I realized that it's not for me as well, because I would find myself literally going, 9:40 in the evening, thank you so much for joining me, folks, we'll be back again next weekend. And in my mind I'm like, yeah, I'm hopped up on 2 cans of Monster Energy drink and I sound awesome. But to people listening, they're just trying to have like a regular Saturday night, and here's this guy just yelling at them. So one thing I learned from that experience was that you can totally you can sound what am I trying to say? You don't have to sound super energetic and happy to sound entertaining. You can vary it up. You can switch it up. If you're talking about something, you can, switch your energy down lower, but always, have that engaging manner of speaking, and always keep yourself on your toes in that sense, and always wrap it up nicely. And you can feel free to kind of play with your energy and the way you kind of speak with your voice. But you don't always have to be yelling and smiling and energetic all the time.
That's very important, I think, for especially anything audio. You know what I mean? Like, if you can't see the people's faces, then the sound has to convey the emotion, right?
Yeah.
So you're right. If you're yelling all the time, you're just like, it's this one long emotion.
Yeah. And my father would always tell me, he would try to impart his bits of knowledge about radio and audio, and he would always say that, audio, or he would would say radio is the theater of the mind. So it's one thing to watch a stage play, or to watch a movie, or to watch TV. There's a visual aspect to it. But with radio, or with podcasts, or with audiobooks and anything like that, you have technically more freedom than you do with film or anything visual, because when people, for example, are listening to just audio, and you show, for example, so you have like a short film, you show them a short film about a forest. There's a specific forest, there's a specific guy in that forest, there's a specific cabin that he goes up to. But if you're, for example, producing, a radio drama, or, a dramatic podcast, and you, for example, instead play the sound of crunching footsteps on grass, and you hear the crickets in the ambiance of the forest, and you hear him opening the door of this cabin, it can look 1,000 different ways in your head. And so there's kind of more power in that, right?
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's what I love about even what you mentioned, like these drama podcasts and everything. You and I could listen to the same podcast and have 2 very different images in our head, and I think that's amazing. That's so cool. That's so cool to me.
It works in voiceover and the voiceover world as well. I mean, there are a lot of people who get into voice acting, especially lately, with people trying to find new ways to earn money. They get into voice acting and they get shell shocked because they realize that clients, they're no longer looking for the usual, buy this now, 59 pesos SRP. There is still a market for that, but there is a bigger market for people who just want to hear natural sounding conversation. Like, hi, my name is Renzo and I'm a guest of the White Stripe podcast. No. It's very matter of fact and casual. And it's almost like people don't know how to dial it back to sounding normal again, because they got so used to how people are usually depicting radio DJs or voiceover artists.
That's interesting to me, because you're right. Even I think personally that was one draw for me when I started to get into podcasts, and it was a bit early. Like, I started listening around I think 2016. I started really listening, and most of them at the time had very calm voices. It was more educational centric. You know what I mean? Like, it was very 99% Invisible, Roman Mars, like very just chill
Right, right.
guys. And I remember there would be days where I would go to school and I'd want to hear the radio. And then there would be days where I just wanted it to be, I just want to listen to what this guy says about New York and the sound that it makes. I don't know, something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like it was very chill, it was very normal. And that was one big draw. And I think people are adjusting to it now, huh?
Yeah, and it's actually great that you mentioned that, because it reminds me of, again, another advantage that audio as a medium has over something like TV or movies or anything visual. Because for example, if you just woke up, or you're on the way to work, or you're on the way to school, and obviously we can't be watching movies in our car on the way anywhere. It's dangerous, but of course if you're not driving, it's fine. But then there are some days where your brain also just isn't kind of in the mood to take in that much information. So audio is sometimes like the perfect way to get that. And you said it great. You said it right. Like there are days where you kind of just want to listen to music, and there are days when you just want to hear, mentally stimulating conversations. And I think podcasting and radio can offer both of that. But I have a question for you. I mean, as a podcaster, you will also work in kind of like the same realm where we're both using our voices. Yeah. What's kind of like the identity you wanted to kind of put out there with this podcast? I mean, were you kind of basing it out? Did you want to do more of like just a calm, collected dude having a conversation, or did you want to are you putting up a character? Is this like a version of Trey that isn't the same as he is in real life?
No, that's a great question. One thing that I learned through this whole process of having a podcast is that I want to release more of myself, more of my genuine self. So if you talk to me in real life, you might not get as much as you do on my podcast.
Okay.
Naturally, I do like to think about a lot of like the complexities of things and all that stuff. But when it comes to like emotion, I'm not as like, it doesn't come out as naturally to me on a normal conversation.
Right.
Well, it depends who you are, but like,
right.
Let's say we just met in a bar somewhere, you're not gonna hear these things about me, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, sure. I want to release those,
and that's
thoughts.
For like 3 or 4 shots in, then we're telling each other and keeping darkest secrets, and you're my best friend and all that stuff.
They were like, I'm like, Renzo, I have to tell you something.
I love you so much, man.
I just met you today, but you're the best. No.
Exactly.
So when it comes to the character, for me, I thought of it like I want to be a better version of myself in real life. I want to be a more honest version of myself in real life. And I want to have these conversations that mean more than what I normally have. And I'm not saying that I don't have these conversations outside. I do. Yeah. But there's a certain purpose to why I'm doing this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And I tried a lot of things. I also tried like the, hi, like I'm Trey, all that stuff. And I'm like, I think after like 5 minutes, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. This is not what I sound like in real life. Like this is not. And then I also tried like the almost like Roman Mars type, like, hi, welcome to the White Stripe podcast. And today, I'm like, I don't sound like that either, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of just like, I try to find my own, how I would sound in real life. And then insert an extra sense of truthfulness or vulnerability that you wouldn't normally get. And that's how I pretty much got this whole podcast quote unquote character or way of delivering what I want to say.
No, I mean, you're doing it right though. I mean, I always tell this to people in our student DJ programs, Rookie Radio. I always tell them, no one can do you the way that you do you. And if you constantly try to sound like somebody else, you're either going to build a character and an image and a personality that is not sustainable. Example, you after 5 minutes getting tired of yelling.
I tried.
Yeah. And or you're just going to be unhappy because you're not going to feel like you're being honest to yourself. And the next person who can do that character better than you will thrive better than you will. And parang sayang lang yung hard work mo. So I always tell them, I always tell them, number one, you don't have to yell, you don't have to shout, you don't have to be so happy, energetic. And number two, you have to spend considerable time trying to figure out like who you are as an on-air personality or as a personality that is put to audio. Because, and if you are like quintessentially yourself and you are unapologetic about it, well, not to a sense where you don't apologize for your mistakes, obviously, but then where you're just yourself and you're comfortable being yourself and you're not trying to be anybody else, then that's literally the only thing and the best thing you can offer as a personality. So
I went through that as well. Like what I mentioned, the whole like upbeat energy. At the same time, I also kind of tried like that cool. Like I think it was unconscious as well. Like it was just what I wanted. I want to be this. You know, I want to be cool, the creative genius, whatever. You know what I mean? Like you want to be those kind of things, but it's not sustainable if it's not who you are.
Yeah, for sure. Well, when did you kind of like have that realization? I mean, was it during a specific recording, or kind of was it just one day an epiphany? You were like, wait a minute, I don't want to sound like, I can't sound like either of those.
It was a long process of what I wanted to do. So like what I had my first podcast with Don, the Bente podcast, and when I started this, I was kind of just like, where do I go from here? Yeah. You know what I mean? Because Bente had its own tone, and I think I was truthful there. And when I went to my own thing, I was like, okay, how do I produce myself? Yeah. And stay true? Because of course, when you produce yourself, it's like you want to put the best out there. You want to like clean up. You want to do all that stuff. And then eventually, I think halfway through my run so far, I realized that there are so many things that I just want to keep in. There's some pauses where I'm just like, that pause is great.
Right.
Like if I ask them, like, how did it feel when this happened? If I cut it and they go, oh, I felt this way. Or if I get the, you know what I mean? Like once I figured I want that, then I think the rest kind of just followed.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. That's great, because I was just thinking, the other day that when it comes to storytelling, I play Dungeons and Dragons, and as a dungeon master, I have to narrate and everything. And Matthew Mercer, who is a very talented voice actor and a very talented dungeon master as well, he takes advantage of those pauses. And, he like the pauses in between his words have just as much weight as the words themselves, because, sometimes the pause can be super telling. If there's a pause between, like before a person answers a question, it's because they're taking time to think about it. Or if there's a pause before they reveal something, it's because either they had difficulty revealing it and it's an honest moment, or, there really is something more to it. So there really is that realization, cleaning up audio in that sense. While it does work for example, like YouTube, if you're really like cutting up for time in an audio sense and you're trying to capture people genuinely, the ums and the stuttering and the silences and the pauses, that is just as juicy and as honest as the words themselves.
Exactly. Like, and I even figured this out for myself. Even when I'm doing it myself. That's why I kind of figured out I want the whole vulnerable side of me. I want you to hear my voice cracking. You know what I mean? Like when I'm being emotional. I want you to hear that. I want you to hear the real side that I can't usually portray on the outside world and all that stuff. So that's why I kind of love doing this and in this medium. And when it comes to, let's say, the podcasting thing, you asked me, like, is there a moment? Like, there's so many different moments that I realized what I wanted.
Right.
There are so many different... Because I consume podcasts, like, an almost insane amount of episodes, like, a week. It's just how I am. Like, it's what I love listening to. I love working with podcasts. I love driving with... it consumes my life, almost.
Yeah.
So...
And it makes sense. That makes sense that you're doing a podcast as well, because, there is always kind of that age-old saying where... You do what you know. You do what you know. You do what you love. And if you're this deep into podcasting, then it just only makes sense that. And there's a certain comfort knowing that the person who's making the thing you're making loves and is into making the thing that they're making.
Exactly.
Which is a mess of a sentence, but I think makes sense.
So it's just a bunch of different things. I learned so much. I even have there are podcasts about making podcasts that I've listened to over and over again. I took notes of what I liked, what I didn't like. I tried to apply it. Slowly started to learn what I really wanted to do. And this is the result that comes out. Because even when you look at episode 1, 2, 3 to episode 20 plus that I'm on today, it's so different. My tone is a bit different. My style is a bit different. And that's only because I realized along the way that, oh, I want to be like this. You know?
Right, right.
I don't
And
want
it's
to.
also it helps that sorry, but it helps that you've had so many guests that you that kind of exemplify that as well. The whole honest to themselves and
Yeah.
they're so strong in their personalities that it's inspiring and it's great and
Yeah.
it's so nice to talk to these people and to kind of get that energy from them because we kind of embody that too.
I agree completely. All right, we're gonna take a quick break and we'll be right back with Renzo. All right, we're back with Renzo. Audio, interviews, all this stuff. He does it.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about the best interview you've ever had.
Man, well, okay. First, let's define best. Are you talking most entertaining guest or easiest to talk to or most fulfilling in terms of what I wanted?
What's your favorite
Favorite.
interview?
Okay, well, I guess this is not a surprise to a lot of people considering, I am such a big fan of the 1975. Getting to sit down with Matty Healy.
Oh, I was so jealous of you that day.
Dude, it's crazy. I mean,
I was there that day, yeah.
Yeah. And it was such a good show. It was such a good show.
It was so good.
And there, leading up to that interview was also just as, crazy because finding out that yes, you're gonna get to interview the 1975, and yes, you're gonna get to watch them for free because you're interviewing the 1975. It's like, is this real life? But that day, you and I, we grew up like loving bands and listening to bands and in that whole fanboy fandom life. And, I was the type back in high school when the Maine came here, Forever the Sickest Kids and Rocket to the Moon, I was at their hotel, waiting at the lobby with the rest of the fans, like, giving them stuff to sign. Like on my wall, I have a signed $20 bill from Rocket to the Moon from way back because I had nothing else for them to sign other than a $20 bill my grandma gave me for Christmas. and they looked at me so weird, but that's how much I love bands and I get so into it. So, of course, being an adult, I can't do that anymore because it's illegal. But, but getting to, interview Matty Healy just leading up to it is crazy because, I show up there, they tell me to go early and I'm put into contact with some of the people who were in charge of kind of handling them and kind of where they were going and to be part of those conversations and for me to read the message saying, okay, Renzo, when you get to the venue, please go to the back entrance. We'll take you to the room where, they're hanging out and you'll get to interview them. And I'm just like, this is crazy. But leading up to it, they said that, okay, it's not going to be the whole band. It's just going to be George and it's just going to be Ross. And I'm like, okay, that's totally cool. I mean, again, I'm not the type to pick a favorite member, but obviously, being a fan of the 1975 and just knowing that Matty is a lot of like the creative force behind it and just, Matty being Matty, you will want to talk to Matty, but they told me that he wasn't feeling very well that day. So it was totally cool. And honestly, that also kind of made me a bit less nervous for the interview just because,
that makes sense. Yeah.
Because I feel like talking to George or Ross or, or Adam, it would be a lot more chill than having to talk to Matty. But this is me like pre-meeting the 1975. Again, these are all just like ignorant fanboy thoughts. But 5 minutes before the actual interview, their manager comes in and they're just like, okay, it's not going to be George or Ross. Like Matty decided that he wants to do the interview. So he's going to be coming in 5 minutes. And I'm like,
goodness.
Okay, interviewing Matty. No big deal. It's all good. And so he walks in, he's obviously not feeling very well and he doesn't look like he's feeling very well, but he still gives you a smile. I, extend my hand to shake it, to shake his hand, but he pulls me in for a hug and I'm like, is this real life? Like if Matty Healy infects me, like that's totally cool. Just thankfully it wasn't anything serious because it was like in December of 2019.
Oh, that's true.
But I mean, sat down and he was feeling sick and you can watch the interview. It's on YouTube, but he still answered everything so eloquently and with detail, and he would react to my questions with such interest. And, I felt that we connected on a very good level. And overall, it was just such a great experience. And then, right after that interview, I was led through backstage out to the main audience area, got to see them perform live, no room opening. And I mean, what else could you ask for, right?
That was insane. I remember you were posting stories about it,
Mhm.
and I was on my way, or I was already at the venue when you were posting about it. And then I
Yeah.
was just like, I replied, I was like, yo, you got to talk to man.
Yeah,
Like,
dude.
what was that like? And I remember you were telling me like he was sick. And you replied like after the show was done, right? You
Mhm.
told me he
Yeah.
was sick. And I was just like, are you sure? Like, bro, that whole performance did not seem like he was sick.
Yeah. And I think that's also an example of performers, artists, stepping up to the plate and realizing that there's a job to be done. You could be sick out of your mind, you could be nervous, and you could be uh, getting stage fright like nobody's business. But if it's your turn and your time to get out there and perform, you get out there and perform. So it's a good kind of example of that. But in terms of other favorite interviews, I mean, obviously the Maddie is the obvious one, but there are so many like great shows that I've had on air with local talent that
Mm.
they're just so much fun to talk to. I mean, every time One Click Straight's on the show, they're just like such a blast to have on.
Oh, they're so fun
Riesland
to talk
Silence
to.
also so fun to talk to. Ben&Ben, like we squeeze them into the booth like sardines, but they're talking and they're all interacting with each other. And even the smaller bands that don't get as much
Mm.
exposure, they walk in there and they're so ready to talk about their songs and to talk about why they do this, that it's just a blast and so much fun every single time. So I think it's easier for me to talk about interviews I don't like than it is for me to talk about interviews I do like, because generally I have so much fun with them.
What are some interviews that you didn't like?
Oof. Well, of course I'm not going to name anybody, but
Give me like a hint of who they are, but like don't drop too much.
okay. Okay. No, dude, I have specific names in mind, and like these are local artists, and like they, oh gosh, no. But all I'll say is that if you are scheduled for an interview, right? If
Mm.
you're scheduled for an interview and your management puts you up to it, whatever, you go there and you talk. You answer the questions and you do your best to make something entertaining out of it. I know, yes, you are an artist, you're a band, you're a singer, and so you make music, and sometimes it's not fun to do the whole interview portion of it, but
Mm.
part of the job. And the interviews I don't like are the ones where they obviously like think that this is stupid,
Mm. Yeah.
because it's like it's press and it's like marketing
Mm.
and whatever. But I'm here trying my best to make something genuine out of it. And obviously I know, yes, there are some parts of it that are complete BS, that feel super fabricated, that feel like it's just part of the typical process of
Yeah.
label back music. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, Margot and I, my co-host on Play FM, we're doing our best to, get information out of you about your music, about why you're doing this, and we're doing our best to make something fun out of it. So you got to work with us,
Mm.
and if you think it's stupid, then tell me you think it's stupid. Like, just feel free to be like, just don't be cold and don't
Right.
be
Right.
an R, because that just makes it uncomfortable for me, for them, and for people tuned in. I mean, yeah.
How do you feel when you're in the middle? When you're in the
Mhm.
middle of one of those conversations?
Well, I mean, at that point, it really is just a difficult decision. You're not sure if you point it out and make a joke out of it, or if you just
Mm.
keep continuing with the interview like nothing's wrong. Because
Yeah.
there have been some artists that really don't reciprocate, or that really give out this vibe that they're not interested in doing this. And as much as I want to be like, all right, folks, well, clearly they don't want to be here, and neither do I. So let's just wrap this thing up, because that'd be fun to hear on air. Can you
Yeah, it would
imagine
be.
you
It
listening
would
to an
be.
interview? That'd be pretty fun, because I'm always thinking about the audience. Like, what would be the most
Yeah.
fun for the audience to hear? And
Right.
obviously, I can't, make fun of the whole interview like that with like their management there, and it might
For
be
sure. For
rude to the
sure.
artist also. So you never
Yeah.
really know. So I guess at that point, you really just clock in. You just do the job. You ask the questions. You have them talk about their singles, and you wrap it up, and you just chalk it up to artists that don't like doing interviews, which again is totally fine. You don't have to be obligated to like interviews, because again, there are people who aren't comfortable with speaking, and that's well
Right.
within their right.
Yeah.
But it's part of it, and
Yeah.
it may be an uncomfortable part to these people, but we're all just trying to do our jobs.
what's one radio question cliche that you could just, if you could, you just remove it completely?
God, dude, can experienced radio DJs please stop asking artists where they got the inspiration for the song? Because, dude, like, oh my God, like, yep. So they send you, if it's like a major artist. Okay, so if it's a small artist and there's no info about the song, yes, that's the perfect time to ask it because there's no info about that.
Yeah.
But most of the time, these labels send you they send you a press kit with the inspiration behind the song in the email. Like, and I'm here thinking, y'all didn't read the email. Like, you guys aren't reading the email because it literally states there, like, so many of like the opening questions are answered in the press kit. And that to me is, an example of someone who isn't, I wouldn't call them lazy, but I would call them, I would say that they're not doing their job right as an interviewer, because what I do, I'll let you in on kind of like what I do when preparing for an interview.
Go for it.
Before I write any questions, I watch like the 2 or 3 most recent interviews of that artist. And what I do is I don't ask any of the questions that have already been asked in those interviews. Instead, I ask about the answers they gave.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. Because artists, they love it when you say like, so you were on this show and then you answered this question and you talked about this. Can you talk more about that? Because then they're like, wow, you're actually like did your research and you actually like want to know these things, as opposed to just like, so what's the inspiration behind the song? So what's the meaning of the music video? So what's next for you? Like,
how'd you come up with the band name?
Yeah, exactly. Like, these are all, questions that have already been answered, and which also leads me to one of my favorite interview questions that I love asking. It's what interview question are you most tired of hearing? Because it gives them an opportunity to actually like kind of break them, like the fourth wall a little bit, and just be real. And it kind of makes them comfortable in a sense that, okay, this guy is really trying his best to just converse with me and to have, a normal conversation. So the fact that you asked what's one question that you want to remove is also just like a breath of fresh air to me, because I've always been wanting to talk about this, but I always feel so mean talking about it. But I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to actually like answer it.
I asked because we went on, so of course, like with Nathan and Murky, right? We had like this month or 2 months of like just full of like radio shows.
Yeah.
And a lot of them ask the same questions, right? Like what you said. Like it's the whole, like, how'd you come up with a name? For Nathan and Mercury's, I remember at one point, I'm sure they were so sick of, so who's Mercury?
Yeah.
And everyone's just like, all right, like, come on. Like, we're here. Like, what the heck? But anyway.
Yeah.
So I asked that question because I also feel that way for myself, right? Even when I have interviews with people, I like to go around and stalk them. So anyone who's ever interviewed with me, I've stalked you, right? I have gone through your Instagram, I've gone through your websites, I've gone through yours, like whatever. Like I have done stuff just so you get better questions.
Yeah, for sure.
You get all these things and you get to discuss what you said. If you can say, oh, this happened to you, or oh, you said this, can you talk about it? Yeah. That's a lot more intriguing than what does this mean question.
Right. On the flip side, I just remembering what I was saying like literally minutes ago, I don't want to make it seem like, these questions are off limits, because again, they've been like the backbone. They've been the backbone of every interview since the beginning of time. And yes, there are times and places to ask them, but then, I feel like in this day and age with artists, again, you having experienced it as, manager and going around to all these like press things, and to hear the same questions asked over and over again, you must wonder like, these people are kind of just like phoning it in, and I don't want that. I don't want that vibe to come from my own show. So, I think it really is just a matter of taking the usual questions and finding new ways to ask them. Like, for example, yes, we have like, again, my show has been guilty of asking, where did you get the band name?
Of course.
But at a certain point, I was like, you know what? I told Margot, we should stop asking what the band name means and we should start making it a game. So we ended up making it a game where Margot and I would have our own crazy theories about why this band is named a certain way. And then the band will tell us if we're correct or incorrect.
Right.
And then they can correct us and explain the story if they want to. But I think it's just, what really grinds like the gears of these artists is just hearing the question asked again and again in the same way, because they feel like they're kind of just repeating themselves. Just find new ways to say stuff, and it'll translate, and people will notice, and artists will notice too.
Oh, for sure. I think one thing for me that I've realized over my time talking with people, there's some questions that I kind of let go of. There's some questions that I embraced wholly. You know what I mean? I'm just like,
Right.
there's some, for example, I ask you, how did it feel when this happened? I love that question.
Right.
I wanna get that feeling out of you. I don't wanna just ask you like, what are the facts? Like, because when you say, oh, what happened here? You're like, oh, this happened, and ta-da, ending. But if you ask like, at step 3, how did you feel? That's just my thing.
Yeah.
You know, it conveys so much emotion out of somebody. And if they're a good guest, you'll get that. You know what I mean? You'll get your soundbite. You'll get something out of that. And
and I think a lot of the time, people want to talk about these things. We were constantly told that we're the generation that wanted to broadcast themselves, and so we were given a platform to. And something as simple as how did that make you feel can really mean a lot to people. And it's helped me open up about certain things tonight in this podcast so far. So you're doing something right, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Like, honestly, like, I was going through your stuff, and I remember I was just like, how does he have such a smooth voice? I love his voice. Because, like, okay, so just,
Thank you.
This sounds weird, but I hear you every day.
Not weird at all. Don't worry
Not weird at
about
all?
it, dude.
All right.
Not weird at all.
I don't even hear you on the radio. I hear you on YouTube. You're talking about
YouTube, Instagram ads, like, dude,
you're talking about like Burger King, all that stuff, right? Like, when and I have this thing where, like, if I'm going through it, if it sounds like you, I'll be like, this is probably Renzo.
You're probably right.
Yeah, because at this point I'm just like, yeah, this is probably Renzo. When I go and like sometimes I go through like 3 ads and it's like all you. I'm just like,
Whew. Thank God. It means I'm eating. At least it means I have rent for the month. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude. Like, that's why it's crazy when I remember when I was like talking to you, or when I was preparing to talk to you, right? I was just like, how do I like bring it up that I hear his voice every day talk about this new shaving thing or whatever?
yeah. But then my friends always like they always screenshot whenever they hear my ads, and they just send, like, they don't even send a message anymore. They just screenshot it and they just send it to me, and I'm just like, yeah. Sometimes I don't even reply. Sometimes I just say I'm sorry because they're just sick of my voice sometimes. But I mean, that comes with the territory. I mean, I've also talked about this. Again, I'm not someone who's extroverted. I'm introverted. I'm charismatic. I can call myself charismatic, but then there are some days where I just really want to just stay quiet, and I don't want to hear my own voice, and I just don't want to talk. I just want to be passive for once and just hear people talk. But it's hard because so much of my work relies on that. But it's a strange position to be in.
What's it like when you go to YouTube and you just hear yourself?
Feels good. I mean, it feels really good just knowing that the hard work that I've been putting into over the years. I've been doing voiceover work since I was like 7 years old, but pursued it full time along with radio since like 2013. But the fact that I've been doing this for like over 7 years now, and knowing that it's translating into work that I see that is popping up in people's feeds, like that's a good feeling, because it means that my work's not going to waste.
That's crazy. I remember, because I want to ask you about this. You tweet about it often, and it's just something that intrigues me because you didn't finish college. You went to Mint for a while, and you took a film, right?
Yeah.
Why film? Why'd you take a film?
I grew up, loving making stuff. Like, ever since the first Nokia cell phone came out, I was able to take video. Like, I was
so cute.
Would borrow my mom's phone and would just like create all these, like, I'd create fake infomercials. I'd make fake, news reports. I just love, recording stuff and, doing stuff. And my sister's helping me out. But I guess I thought it was always going to be like my end game, because, in high school, my goal, like it sounds stupid to say now, considering that it really isn't a big deal for most people, but my dream college when I was in high school was like, I'm going to take up digital filmmaking in CSB. Like, that was like my dream college, and I was going to hang out with other filmmakers. And, unfortunately it didn't come to fruition. It didn't go
Right.
as planned because troubles and everything, and I had to finish high school, through DepEd's ALS program, Alternative Learning System, which is kind of a program that they put up for lesser fortunate people who aren't able to afford high school, and so you can kind of get a high school diploma through them.
Right.
And so I guess after that, my goal was always like, it started off with me saying, okay, I'll do radio, I'll do VO, but only as like a stepping stone to putting myself through college in film school, and then I'll pursue film. But anyone in film school will tell you not to go to film school. like anyone who's like deep into film school will say, don't waste your money on film school. Just go watch some YouTube videos and start shooting. But for me, I think, while I took that, as something that's true, I think what really is valuable about college are the connections you make. And
Yeah.
that is something that people always talk about. And especially here in the Philippines, we're such a college oriented, culture and society that, we're like years ahead of we're years past our graduation, but we're still working with people who we met in college. We're
Right.
still hitting up people for work who we met in college. So that's what I had in mind. Like, I'm not paying for, film inspiration or education. I'm paying for to meet and to be introduced to people who I will work with in the future, which
Yeah.
I guess kind of, is true as well. But I ended up just making really, really, really good friends in Mint and meeting some
That's
great,
good.
great people. And I met you through people that I met through
Yeah,
Mint.
exactly.
So, this is a personification of that. So technically our friendship is worth however much I spent in Mint for those two.
No.
We're going to put like a peso value to it. Yeah.
I find it really interesting too what that you mentioned, because I think you had a tweet a few days ago about about the college culture here that is kind of just given. I find it interesting because for me it's what you said really resonated, and for me it's kind of like the flip side to it. I finished college,
right.
but I took pol sci. I'm not in that sphere right now. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
like,
True.
Like I'm just like.
You're not scientifically politicizing anything.
Yeah. I am in my head, but like,
there you go.
Like I'm not putting it on paper. I'm not posting anything about it. You know what I mean? I'm like,
right.
I have my own thoughts on stuff, and it's my thoughts, whatever. Right? I'm not out here changing the world right now. But I found it really interesting that you mentioned that, because I found myself in a similar situation, but in a very different way.
How so?
Because, like what I mentioned, I'm not like what you said, like the whole connections things. I see it completely. I'm just like, I'm not in my sphere. So when I was thinking about it, I was just like, I'm glad that you went through to Mint and everything like that. But honestly, man, like, you don't need it. Like,
Think so?
I don't think you do.
I mean, because for me, when I think about it, I've always had this weird mindset in the back of my head where it's like, it's so hard to meet people naturally. I think I had a conversation about this like with my best friend a couple of years ago where, I feel bad for people. I felt bad for myself at that time because, I just kept thinking of, obviously grass is greener. And obviously I was like filled with, bitterness and jealousy and, anger and frustration that, my batchmates were all going off to college and experiencing this and that. And, I would hear about their cuentos and their stories and I would feel like super left out. Like it would feel so bad. But I would think of it in a sense that, there are so many of these people that you're forced to meet that you wouldn't have ended up meeting otherwise. And that's kind of like what I was craving for in a sense.
Right.
That,
no, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But it also makes sense because, you on the flip side, again, you took a pol sci, but you're not exactly like swimming in your pol sci contacts.
No, I'm not.
You know,
I am not.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is also another, result of me not being exposed to these other perspectives because in my head, it's always been like, my friends who wanted to take up film or wanted to take up MMA or wanted to take up music are now working with people who are also into music and film and animation. Yeah.
I mean, that's happened with me also. Like, when I see it, like, for example, like Nathan in music, right? Like, he's where he is today because of his talent plus people he knows. Like, it's just part of life, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But then when I think about your radio career, I'm just like, yo, you're making bank by yourself.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. But what I really wanted is friends. No, but for real, I mean, for real though, it's just, I guess I just felt so left out because, I came from a very
Oh
small
yeah,
high school. My high school was like, there were like 20 people in all of the high school, first to fourth year. It was
Oh
like one of those
wow.
small learning centers talaga, like talagang really, really small and different learning system.
Yeah.
And so I thought that college was going to be like my time to shine and
Oh
to
for
bloom,
sure.
which I think a lot of people, think so as well. And it's a common
Yeah.
theme in American movies as well, where you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna go to college and I'm gonna lose my virginity and drink and like do all this stuff, which isn't what I had in my mind, of course.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and especially in this culture where fourth year high, I remember like second, third year high school, I would go to these parties, these AC parties and these parties and stuff like that. But all anyone would ever talk about is like, so what course are you gonna take?
Oh yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
did you get these? Did you get into CSP? Did you get to DLSU?
Yeah.
Did you take your
Yeah.
UPCAT na? And I'm like, I'm here like, bro, I just finished like the first season of Breaking Bad. Like I don't know, I'm here. I just want to talk about like this crazy ass new show about meth, and you guys are talking about like crazy college entrance exams, and I felt so left out in that sense, but. I don't blame them because it's really just the culture and
Yeah.
if I were going to college, that's also
Oh, no,
I would
for
not
sure.
be able to shut up. I wouldn't be able to shut up about that as
For
well.
sure.
So I don't hold it against them, but
I mean,
there was a lot of
yeah.
bitterness in me.
I had my phase of like, hey, what are you studying? And
Yeah.
they're like a business, and I'm like, oh, I'm studying pol sci. You know what I mean? I had that.
Yeah,
I'll be
'Cause
lying.
It's a good like icebreaker.
Yeah.
It's a
I'll be lying if I said that I didn't have like that part of me where I'm just like, I want to tell people I'm in De La Salle. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, do you want to know? You want to know a really embarrassing story?
Go.
Like
Go for it.
I don't think I've told anybody this just because I tucked it into the back of my head. But so I was doing a VTR, and what VTRs are, right? Like they're basically just like
Yeah.
auditions for
Yeah.
commercial models and stuff. So I went to a VTR, and I was hanging out with the people who were also waiting before it was their turn to audition. And if you haven't been to folks, if you haven't been to a VTR audition room, like the waiting room of a VTR audition room is like, it's crazy. Like you have Brazilian models, you have like these gorgeous people, and it's like it's a very intimidating space. So you're really just trying your best to fit in and to get to know these people. And I managed to fit myself into a small circle of people that were talking, and it got to the topic of like colleges and like what people would take up. Bruh, I lied about going to CSB. I hate myself. They were asking me like, where did you go to college? Where are you going to college? I was like, CSB, because everyone was saying like CSB, DLSU,
Yeah.
UP,
Yeah.
and I said CSB, and they asked me like what my ID was, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I just copied like whatever this guy's answer was. Thankfully, he wasn't listening to me, and like the person that I lied to about going to CSB the most, I had like this whole conversation with him, and like I even like kept it up with like, oh yeah, I'd go to this spot and that spot because I used to date a girl who went to CSB, so I would know some of the spots.
Oh yeah. Okay.
But then this guy that I lied to about going to CSB ended up being like, he's now like a pretty sikat like artista dude, and I'll probably tell you his name after we're done recording, but. I just felt so embarrassed and so bad like after. I was like, why did I lie? Because at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of that I was making up a lot of that like paranoia myself, because I never had people tell me that. I never had people tell me it's okay that you're not going to college. It's okay that, you're not missing out on much, because in my mind, it was always just like, yeah, everyone's going to college and having fun and you're not part of that.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure it would have been okay if I said, oh, I'm not going to college. I'm just doing my own thing, because, there are people who do that. And I think a lot of it, is just kind of pressure that I put on myself. But, talking to people like you and talking to people, who have gone through the college experience years after, telling me that, dude, I didn't retain anything from that. Like I took up this course, but I'm like, I'm doing this now. So it's like, it's nice. It's comforting. It's reassuring.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, man, there was just a lot of that.
I can only say that because I'm done with it.
Right.
During the process, I'll be like, no, like college is the best. Like you need it in life,
Yeah.
I learned anthropology at 7:30 a.m.
It was great. You guys had 7:30 a.m. classes.
I know.
Like,
I'm just like,
dude.
geez. Like there's, I remember like maybe like 3 subjects from college, right? And those are my 3 favorite subjects. Like that's it. Other than that, it's kind of like blank. So you have the fundamentals of your course plus like 3 other subjects maybe. That's all I remember. Right. So looking back now, I'm like, yeah, you don't need it. But of course, honestly, I think I do the same thing. Like if I was in your shoes and they were like, "Hey, where are you going?" and it's big campuses, so it's not like, you know what I mean. It's not like Mint where you can figure out if not someone's not going there. It's like there are thousands of people who are in De La Salle that I have never met, never seen, all that stuff. So I'd probably do the same thing.
Yeah, and plus, like when you say CSB, like they stop asking you questions, you know, like, and I wasn't in the mood to like be singled out and to be like, you know, asked these questions. So I just wanted to say CSB to get it over with. But yeah, it speaks volumes about how, you know, it's just so expected of people. You know, my tweet did say that it's such a given for most people, and to me, it's such a luxury that will exist in another lifetime for me. But you know, somewhere down the road. But I guess just a lot of it is kind of, it's the culture to blame because we put so much weight and importance to it. But I think this generation now, they're realizing that, you know, what you said, like you don't really need it. Like there are people making money and, you know, starting businesses and companies before they even finish college, and sometimes not even related to what they're taking up. So I'm great that a lot of people are realizing that now too.
I think there are some like fields that you need a degree for sure, right? Science,
definitely,
whatever.
But like if my heart surgeon, like if I find out my heart surgeon went to 1 semester of film school, I'll be terrified.
Yeah, I'll be like, no, I'm not doing that. But again, like there's this whole other industry that I don't think you really need it. You know, like
for sure.
It could help, sure. Like, and if you don't have the natural skill set or like the willingness to learn outside of a classroom, then sure, go for it. Yeah. But in my opinion, you don't really need it.
Right. I think at the end of the day, a good thing to leave it on is like, you know, if you can and if you are able to get a college education, then make the most of it. Like, you know, use it to the best of your ability. But if you can't, do the same thing. Use it to the best of your ability, because right now there are so many ways to learn and to kind of explore your field without having to spend that much. So
for sure. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to why can't I speak? We're going to go to the speed round with Renzo. Ooh. All right, we're back with Renzo. We're at the speed round. So, Renzo, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. Answer as honestly as you can. Okay. If you have a story attached to your answer, go for it.
Alrighty.
All right, so we're going to start a bit easy for you. What's on your Netflix list right now?
Netflix list right now. I am currently catching up on BoJack Horseman. I'm currently on season 5. Fantastic show. And just a lot of anime, honestly. A lot of anime and animated shows. I'm just trying to find ways to fill the void of life.
I feel you. All right, what music are you listening to right now?
Porter Robinson. Porter Robinson has been releasing a bunch of new singles from his upcoming album Nurture. It's out in April or May, if I'm not mistaken. But this is a dude, if you guys haven't listened to Porter Robinson before, this is a guy who grew up on anime and video games, and he makes electronic music. So there's such a heavy influence to that. So there's almost like such a good vibe nostalgia to his music. But if you guys haven't checked out his music, please do. Just all the singles from the Nurture album, go listen to him.
All right. What's a band that surprised you during an interview? Like you're just like, you didn't expect them to be like this, and suddenly like they just they're away from your expectations.
Oh, that's a good question. 4 of Spades.
This was what year? Okay.
This was like 2016. Hey Barbara era. Yeah, like completong 4 of Spades. You know, we knew that they were young and we knew that they were going to be a little unexpected, but ang labo nila, like in the best way. Like they're like Zild, Blaster, and Unique, and you know Bajau, all of them together. They have they're almost like quadruplets that have their own language, and to be able to be a part of that on air and to try to figure it out is just such a fun experience that I think that's why people last in their memories.
All right, I love that answer. That's true though. Like even anyone in that space, to be honest, like even like One Click Straight.
Like, for sure. But like, they're a more coherent malabo, which I super.
Oh no, that's true. But like they have their own like little thing going on. They're like, hey, like J-Poppy, start talking. And,
exactly.
All right, you do a lot of voiceover work, like a lot. What's your favorite character that you voiced over?
Okay, so favorite character that I've voiced over in terms of commercials, I will say that it is the announcer voice for Super Crunch chips. So like late last year, Super
Okay.
Crunch Chips hired me to do their announcer voice, but they didn't hire me to speak like this. They hired me to speak like this. And so any gig that
Lovely.
lets me like have fun with my voice and to just get free reign on that, I
Yeah.
absolutely love. So the Nakakabaliw commercial of Super Crunch, probably my favorite voiceover character in terms of commercials.
How about like a character?
A character. Okay, so in like dubbing, since I dubbed
Yeah. Yeah,
telenovelas and all
the
that
dub.
stuff, um, well, I've gotten to voice some of the most gorgeous looking dudes you have ever seen with like six packs that you have like I have no idea how they made that happen, but it's the times that I get to dub movies that I love. For example,
Okay.
A Tale of Two Sisters.
Mm.
I was able to dub the role of the father of the
Oh,
sisters,
okay.
and
Okay.
I grew up like loving that movie. That movie
Mm.
terrified me, and I loved watching it. So to be able to kind of come full circle in a sense, and
Right.
work on a dub of that movie is just it's super fulfilling.
That's so interesting to me. Like you get to do that because
Yeah, it's super duper fun, dude.
like these are like people and characters that are established, and you get to just like come on over and be them.
And there's also like a recent movie that I dubbed for. It's a Hong Kong movie. I think it's like called like Monster Captures or something.
All right.
Monster Run. It's called Monster Run, and I dubbed literally a piece of paper that comes to life. So he's kind of like the sidekick of the main character. He's a piece of paper, and he helps the main character capture ghosts and monsters. And I'm like this super crazy kind of sidekick character, and it's so much fun. And I just I love it.
That's I did not expect to hear that.
How do you voice a piece of paper?
When it comes to your
That's nice.
telenovelas, can you give me like a sample? Like what do you usually have to like sound like?
It's usually like this. Wait, what do you mean she was the accomplice of Facundo? That's not possible. But wait, Esperanza was just here a moment ago. You were sleeping with him the whole time? How could you? It's basically how it goes.
That's and that's the thing. You don't get to like be in the booth with other actors. You just do it on your own, right?
No, it depends on the studio. Like for example, for ABS-CBN, back pre-COVID, they would kind of plan out which dubbers would have the most scenes together, and they would schedule them for the same studio time, so you can kind of just take turns at the microphone, so it's easier to go through. But yeah, for the most part, if it's your turn to dub, it's really just you for dubbing the rest of the episodes or the movie, and yeah, super fun.
All right. Let's go to another question.
Mhm.
What's a technical skill that you wish you were better at when it comes to your voice?
Ooh, okay. I just wish I just wish my voice lasted longer. Because there would be some voice heavy weeks where I'd have 4 hours of dubbing on Monday and another 5 hours of dubbing on Thursday, and then like that same day in the evening I have dubbing again, and I have radio every weeknight, and then I have like a gig to host, and like by the weekend my voice is just gone for the next like week or so. But then you hear these people who do this and more with their voice, but they still stay intact. So I wish I had that kind of vocal endurance, and I've actually never looked up how to increase your vocal endurance if that's even a thing. So I'll probably look it up after this.
What do you do when you have to dub something, or if you have a hosting gig, or you have to do something and your voice is just like cracking, or it's just like not cooperating with you?
Ooh, well, if it's not cooperating with me, then I have to straight up tell them that I have no voice, because if you force it, then you risk long lasting damage to your vocal cords, and this is like, if this is gone, then I'm poor. Like that's it. So I gotta take care of this thing, man.
That's true. All right, tell me about you moving into your own place. What's that experience been like so far?
It's been fantastic. You feel like you can make something of yourself independently. You feel like you can create your own life, and you feel like you can kind of control your environment much better. And as someone who works in like a creative field, that is so important, because when you're living with your family, it doesn't have to be like an abusive environment for it to be bad. Like you can feel cornered, and you can feel unable to express yourself still, just kind of in that space. But that's personally how I was feeling. But having moved out and everything, it just allows me to kind of breathe easier as my own person, I think.
I'd love hearing that. Congratulations.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
All right, if you could give your if you could give advice to your
Mm.
18-year-old self, what would it be?
Mm. Save money,
That's a good one.
save a lot more money.
You know what? Pause on that because
Yeah.
I love that answer. Because whenever I ask someone, they're just like, "Don't be afraid of," you know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Like that's
yeah.
so save money. No, that's right. That's exactly
Yeah.
what I would tell my younger self. Also, sorry, go on.
No, it's okay. But then, because when I started working in 2013, like 7 years ago, I can't really do the. So I was 20. I was around 19 or 20, and I hadn't. I'm able to live the life I have now. Living by myself, like with my girlfriend, and being able to spend on these things because I've been saving since I was like 20, and thinking of like what I could have been able to like do if I'd been saving like 2 years prior to that and
Yeah.
planning things out more. It would have been a lot better for me in the long run. So I think my second piece of advice is to don't be afraid to lay out long-term plans. I know it's
Ooh.
scary and it doesn't seem like it's possible being 18 years old, but you'll get there eventually because I'm pretty sure there have been moments where you and I, when for example, when we were like 15 years old, you're thinking like, I wonder what I'm going to be like when I'm 20 years old. That seems like
Yeah.
it's so far from now. And then you wake up, you're 20 years old.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to think of. So don't be afraid to plan in the long term and write things down. Keep a log of beautiful moments and memories and not just photos, like actual memories, like retellings of it through either audio or text, because you'll find lessons in them later on in life, for
I
sure.
love that. I agree completely because I have my own like little journal that I write.
Yeah, perfect.
So I have my own journals, and sometimes I'm like, yeah, this is what I felt today. This is kind of like what I learned, right, or whatever. And then 6 months, a year down the line, I like go back to that page, and I'm like, why does this speak to me?
Yeah, no, that's totally true because we're always improving, we're always getting better, and we're always learning new things. And sometimes a lot of people don't realize that recovery and getting better, for example, just bettering yourself in any part of your life, it's never just like an uphill thing. Like it's never just diretso pataas. Like sometimes you will falter, sometimes you will make a mistake, sometimes you'll make the same mistake you did 6 months prior, and sometimes you'll need 6 months ago to tell you how you got out of it. This is the same way you did with your journal entries. So it's really important to kind of ground yourself in that sense.
Completely. All right, we're gonna go to the last few questions.
Sure.
So for this question, it would be, what's your piece of advice for people who want to do radio or voiceover work?
Okay. Well, there are so many avenues for you to put yourself out there. There's Fiverr, there's Upwork, and yes, they are known for not exactly treating freelancers in the best way as compared to the typical industries, but it's all about building up your body of work. It's all about finding ways you can get better, and it's all about seeing what does work for clients and what is being put out there and trying to learn from those voiceover artists and those voiceover people and people on air. So, and when it comes to radio, again, I said this earlier on, never try to sound like anyone else. Sure, you can incorporate and emulate certain traits and vocal qualities that you admire from your favorite radio DJs. But at the end of the day, you are you and you are unique. And if you are able to find the parts of yourself that you think you can bring to the table that no one else can and elevate it to an on-air level, then you've got yourself figured out, and it's all about learning the technicals.
All right, last question is, what would you say to the people who have believed in you all these years? How would you thank them?
Well, I would literally, I mean, this is typically, usually what people say, but I would literally not be here at this point and be who I am right now without those people. I think it's so important to have a good set of friends, family, or just anybody you hold dear or consider family around you. And it's important to talk to them. It's important to be honest with them because, we're always talking about how, if you need someone, come talk to me. But we sometimes forget to do that for ourselves. And we get so used to dealing with our problems by ourselves that we forget that we have people in our life that want to hear us out, that want to help us. So they taught me to be honest with my problems and to come to them with that. And without them, I wouldn't be here. Without them, I wouldn't be at this level of success that I think I do have and I'm thankful for. And I will repay them by if I somehow get hired to do a Netflix show and pop off
There you
one
go.
day and I earn millions. We're going to Cabo, baby. We're going to the Maldives, baby. I got you guys. Beach trip everywhere. Let's go.
Do it. Renzo, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you and your time.
Thanks,
I love
man. Thank
your
you.
work. I love talking to you. Even like last year when I was talking to you, I was just like, this is so much fun. I'm so glad that I got you back on. And just with everything, thank you for your advice. Honestly, like, I hope you come back soon, whenever that may be. I love talking to you about so many different things. Radio, voiceover, whatever. You got it.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you.
And Renzo, you don't need college. You got it.
You know what, man? You're right. I don't need college. Thank you. It's still, no, but for real though, it is still something that I wrestle with. So to hear it from someone who went through it and who completed it and can still tell me, yeah, you're okay. You're good. It means a lot. So thank you so much, man. Thanks.
You're good. All right, Renzo, thank you so much. Any last words?
Wear a mask. Wash your hands. I think that's
go.
just like when people, y'all gotta wash your hands. I feel like people forget that a year in. It's really important. So just wash your hands and go listen to some Porter Robinson.
There you go. All right, Renzo, I'll see you soon.
Thanks, man.